Good morning, everybody, on behalf of the BDV project to this webinar series. First of all, I hope that all of you are doing fine in these times that we know that with this COVID-19 illness is complicated for all of us. So I hope that you stay safe. So today we have the pleasure of having a couple of speakers who are going to present the work on to deliver BDV badges to recognize data science skills, as the title of the presentation states. But before that, allow me to say a few words about the BDV webinar series, please. So this webinar is part of a series of webinars where we are planning to invite speakers and presenters from different organizations, innovation projects, etc., to talk about their experience working with big data and AI. I take also this opportunity to invite any of you, if you have any topic of interest related to these technologies, to be in contact with me and potentially be a speaker in one of our future webinars. As you know, normally we have a series of webinars based on technical and business aspects related to big data. These days, I would say that we are going farther because, as due to the COVID-19, many organizations are going virtual in the sense that they are issuing webinars. You have probably seen a lot of raise on webinars in these days from many organizations. So, in particular, from the BDVA perspective, we are having not only this regular BDV series, but also some other webinars that are related to also BDVA and big data value in general. So, for instance, we have these BDV online portal panels and workshops. As you know, the BDVA was meant to have a conference in Porto in mid-June. So this is not happening. What we are going is to do some specific workshops that were planned for Porto, but virtual in the scope of some webinars that we will be having in May and June. They will be announced in the coming weeks, in any case. We have also a series of webinars related to data platforms that are going to happen in May. Here you have the dates of some of these webinars in case you're interested. This also will be announced in our webpage very soon. Below you have the URL to connect to this webpage. All this information will be also sent to you via an email that you will receive tomorrow as attendees to this webinar. So you don't have to copy all this information. And we will have also some extra webinars related to a specific project, such one that is going to happen next week about benchmarking big data, that I also encourage you to see if you are interested in this webinar, in this topic. So before jumping to the webinar, allow me to explain a little bit about the logistic of the webinar. So first of all, as you know, we are relying on these days on Wi-Fi connection. We are working from home. So in case there are some cut in the communication due to Wi-Fi problems, please reconnect in a couple of minutes, because we will try to resume the webinar as soon as possible. So even if there are some problems, please reconnect again if you're interested in continuing hearing about this topic. The idea normally that we do is to write questions in the chat. So you have any questions, you can write it in the chat that you have in your controls about the webinar. But also we would like to, if you are interested in having an answer from the speaker directly, you can raise your hand. There is a control to raise hand, and I can give you a voice to ask the question directly. So don't hesitate, and if you would like to interrupt in the middle of the presentation, the speaker will be gladly answer to you directly. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. A couple of questions on the poll, a poll that is going to try to understand the kind of audience that we have today. So for that, I'm going to ask you a couple of very simple questions. The first that you will see, I'm going to launch it right now, and you can answer directly, is about the institution you belong to. If you are in an academic institution, or you are more from the industry side, or you are from a different type of institution. So I give you a few seconds to check this information. And this is important also for the speaker to know exactly the type of votings that we have. So I'm going to close the poll now and see the numbers. I'm going to tell you in 1 second. I see that still people are voting. Okay, I'm closing now. So we have apparently around 67% of people belonging to academic institutions, 22 to industry, and 11% to other type of industry or institutions. And the second and last question is related I'm going to launch it as I speak. So it's more related to this particular webinar. So are you interested in using some kind of common way of recognizing educational skills, such as these BDV badges? So it's basically, the answers are basically yes, or yes, but it's not a priority in my institution, or I'm just interested in the topic. So I also give you a couple of seconds more to answer. Okay, I'm closing in 1 second. No, I see that people are still voting, so I'll give it longer because numbers are changing online. Okay, I'm closing now. So apparently there is around 44% that they answer yes without any doubt. But also 44% are just interested. 11% are also said replying yes, but it's not a priority. So 44% both in the yes and the interested in the topic answers. I think that gives you, Ernestina and Nick, also some degree of trust on the type of people that we have in the call. So thank you everybody for answering. So without more delay, let me introduce very quickly the speakers and the topic. We have the pleasure of having two speakers from the Polytechnic University of Madrid, the UPM, that I'm going to show you, as I mentioned at the beginning, the work that they have done related to the use of these badges to recognize skills. First of all, we have Ernestina Menasalvas, who will be introducing the topic very briefly in the context of the work done in the BDV project and also in the UPM and the technical, one of the technical working groups of the BDVA related to skills. And after Ernestina, Nick will be explaining more details about this scheme of badges, and he will also delve into the process to follow for any organization that would like to follow this approach. So without further delay, let me hand over the control, first of all, to Nick, who is going to show the screen. 1 second, I'm going to change presenter, the presenter rights. Okay, Nick should be able to show his screen now, and Ernestina is going to explain a little bit about the webinar. So Ernestina, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Thomas, and thank you all the people that is here connected today. And well, the speaker is going to be Nick, and I'm going just to present, as Thomas is saying, well, the work that we are presenting here today that Nick is going to tell about is just the work that has been being developed during almost the last 3 years. And this is a joint work that has been done by the BDVe project and the Task Force 9, the task force that is on charge of skills in the BDVA. Okay, so well, I also do not want to take more time because I think that Nick has a lot to explain of all this work that has been developed. We are very happy, as you will be seeing, that well, we have the call open, and now all the framework for badges is working. Already 2 institutions are issuing badges, and so right now this is just a reality, and we would like just to have your feedback and to see how this can be enlarged and how more institutions can just go for it. So well, I do not want to take more time, and I'm going just to give the floor to Nick. And we would like, first of all, just before saying goodbye, we would like this seminar to be very much interactive. So feel free to ask at any point any questions. We will be sending these questions to Nick, and we will be glad just to discuss and to have this 1 hour seminar just to discuss all the things and all the doubts that can arise as Nick is talking. Thank you, Nick. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here today to talk to you all about the work that we've been doing on BDV badges. So as Ernestina said, today we'll be presenting work which is a result of a collaboration between the BDVA project, which is being financed by the Horizon 2020 program, and the Skills and Education Task Force of the BDVA. The goal of the work that the group and that Ernestina and I are working together with, it has been primarily in trying to develop frameworks for the recognition of skills in data science. And we're trying to be interactive in the sense that we're trying to gather lots of feedback from all the major stakeholders in this process, and trying to identify needs and trying to the greatest degree possible, meet those needs in the frameworks that we're proposing. We've been working on 2 different proposals. One which is focusing more on formal, in the sense of traditional university, master's, bachelor's kind of programs. And a second proposal, which is a little bit less mature, but is in the works, which is related to non-formal education. In today's talk, I'm going to be focusing more on the part related to formal education, university education. And at the end of the talk, I'm briefly going to describe some of this ongoing work. But like Ernestina said, I would like this to be as interactive as possible. So depending upon feedback and comments and questions, we can focus more on one or the other, or on certain aspects, depending upon what people consider to be interesting. So like I said, there's really going to be kind of 2 parts. The first is the main part. We're going to be talking about badges for formal education. And we're kind of I want to take you through the process that we have been following through the last 3 years. So I'm going to be thinking about what the stakeholders' needs are, kind of one of the first things we did. Want to look at the process that we use to evaluate and select the tool that we have selected for recognizing skills, which are these open badges, but I want to explain a little bit why, and why badges are interesting, and how badges compare to other tools that are in existence. I want to talk a little bit about the logistics of the program that we have been developing and defined. Talk about the requirements in the application process. This is, I guess, of the requirements, I guess, is of interest of everyone. The application process is a little bit more of interest to universities, but I think that it's also interesting that industrial people that are interested in this program have an idea of what goes behind applying for a badge. Talk briefly about the issuing and displaying of badges to give universities an idea of how this works. And lastly, we talk about the results of the pilot that we have run of the academic level of the first of the badges, the BDV Data Science Analytics badge, and where the program is going. And then, like I said, at the end, we'll talk a little bit about the ongoing work which we are doing for non-formal education. Okay. So like I said, we're going to start out by talking about stakeholders' needs. In this ecosystem, we identified at the very beginning kind of 3 main stakeholders. The first being data scientists, the second being industry corporations that are interested in hiring data scientists, and last being institutions that are training data scientists. Okay. So the first, we're going to look here at a little bit of the needs of data scientists. So we conducted some kind of informal interviews with data scientists, and we identified kind of 4 main needs that we thought we'd be interested in addressing when defining a skills recognition program. And the first 2 are related to credentials. So the first is that the credentials that data scientists have should be things that are widely recognized. widely recognized in the same kind of sense that if you happen to have studied at a very well-known university and you say to a person, I studied at the University X, that's like, oh, wow, that's a well-recognized institution. Not all institutions in the European Union have that kind of recognition, and we thought that if we're able to establish a branded recognition and have some kind of interest and growing popularity of that recognition, then even people from institutions that maybe don't have that kind of name recognition could get some additional value. And the second need of related to credentials is that they be easily verifiable online. Lots of traditional credentials, or I guess the most traditional credential is university degree. University degrees are adapting and trying to, be compatible with this more modern online world that we have. But unfortunately, I think that there's still some more work that needs to be done there, and lots of things like being able to easily share information about your credentials online in some cases, like in the case of university degrees, still need some work. So we want to try to provide credentials that are more compatible with things like social networks, digital CVs, things like that. And I guess that's also related to the next, which is a simple way to digitally display their skills online in the social networks. I guess sort of covered that already with discussing the difficulties of the compatibility between some of these more traditional credentials and uses online. And the last is also mechanisms to recognize skills acquired through informal and non-formal training. So informal being work experience. It could be that maybe you don't have much formal training in data science, but you've spent the last X number of years of your life closely working with data scientists or doing some of the tasks that data scientist performs. Maybe you'd like to get some recognition for that. Or maybe the corporation you work for has been providing lots of training for its employees. This would be in the category of non-formal training, in-house training, seminars, that kind of thing. And maybe you'd like to try to get some recognition for those kind of experiences that you have. So like I said, the second stakeholder that we identified were employers of data scientists. And in their case, we identified 5 different needs we thought would be interesting to try to include or consider as part of the design of the program. And some of them overlap, obviously. Even between the 3 of them, you'll see that some of these things are needs of actually all 3. The first we identified here is that we'd like to have job candidates that have credentials which are both granular and individual. Granular in the sense of like a degree is something that's very monolithic. Like I have an undergraduate degree in computer science, but that doesn't say a whole lot about exactly what kind of things I studied in computer science because it's a huge area. Data science is the same kind of thing. Depending upon the kind of position, there might be an interest in finding out, more details about what the person studied and what the person did. Also, degrees are something that are individual, but not individual in the sense that they say a whole lot about exactly how the person performed within the degree program, because basically as long as a person passed, they end up getting a degree. And also, it doesn't say a whole lot about what they did. Like some degrees have specialities, and that can give some idea, but that's something also that that we would like to try to include. In some cases, especially like in the public sector, when doing some hiring, being able to verify credentials can be something that's very important. Even in the private sector, I can understand that some corporations might want to be able to easily verify. The ideal thing in this case is for them to be literally able to, follow some kind of a link, do something online, and be able to receive a verification immediately, without having to ask the student to provide, an official copy of the transcript or that kind of a thing. We like frameworks which simplifies the comparison of skills throughout the EU. There is lots of ongoing work to try to provide, common recognitions, the ETCS programs and things like that. There are efforts to try to help the comparison of different credentials throughout Europe, but it's still something that people have told us is still difficult for them to do. And we'd like to be able to help out in that sense. We've also heard from industry that they would like to be able to have some influence in the training that data scientists receive. And if they are able to contribute to the design of these credentials, that is a way for them to be able to influence the training that the data scientists receive. And lastly, a scheme which can quickly adapt to changes in the data science ecosystem. Like me being from a university, I recognize that in general, I think universities change and evolve rather slowly, and maybe sometimes we're not moving as quickly as our industrial or the people that hire our students would like. And lastly, from the point of view of educators, so maybe it would be interesting, like also, with the growing supply, even though there's still quite a lot of demand for training, having some kind of publicity for their programs, like through this one centralized badge system, or the added value that a branded recognition of the program could provide. So in the sense that, like, for example, programs that have been certified internationally by ABIT or by other international certification bodies kind of use that as a seal of quality for the programs. Maybe programs that are issuing this credential in the future could consider that as being a recognition of the quality of their programs. We also heard that, and I've seen the same thing in our own programs, that it's often the case, or can be the case, that students begin to work while they're studying and maybe don't finish their final projects or have difficulty finishing their final projects. And it might be nice for programs to be able to provide some kind of recognitions for these programs, for these students that have completed quite a good part of the degree, but maybe not the degree entirely. And the last is also related to the last of the industrial part, like some kind of mechanisms for being able to communicate with industry and get feedback from industry regarding these changes, and hopefully being able to consider that as part of the changes they make in their degrees. Some accreditation programs or some university programs also already have that kind of a thing built into their future-looking parts of their degree program, but we saw something that would be interesting to try to take into consideration as part of the design of the system itself as well. So the next thing we want to talk a little bit about are the tools that are available for skills recognition. The five main ones are these. Accreditation is the first. Accreditation is something, especially in Europe, that is required of programs before they can issue degrees in many cases. A university program in many cases cannot legally issue degrees unless they've been accredited by, maybe a state-run or a state-run organization, or have had an international recognition recognized by a state-run organization. This is a rather serious thing in the sense that there are legal implications behind it. There are national accreditations, European accreditations, and international accreditations. And like, even though it's something we recognize as a tool that could be used to recognize, for example, data science education programs, something which we think has too many legal implications to really consider as a possibility for us. So that from the very beginning, we kind of discarded that as a possibility. University degrees is something that everyone is familiar with, so I'm not going to say much about. Certificates is also something that are pretty widely used and understood. So I'm not going to say a whole lot about these, although I would like to say that there are universities that are offering certificates, not just private corporations. So like, for example, the example I put here is of Cisco. Oftentimes when you see job advertisements for networking positions, they might require Cisco or other certifications for the candidates. There are, apart from these industrial certificate programs, there are certificate programs that are associated with universities, and there are universities which are offering certificates. The difference between certificates and degrees is that oftentimes certificates are things that can be done in a shorter amount of time, possibly less expense, can be done more online, less need to actually go and work full-time as a student, that kind of thing. When there's something interesting and very relevant,